also investigating leaks as it relates to Russia. Now, as you know, just recently last week I found out that there was additional information that came forward to me that had nothing to do with Russia, but has everything to do with whether or not Americans were masked properly or, in fact, unmasked. And I'm very concerned about that.
By surveillance.
Now, the Trump-Russia story now exists in 3 different realities. That was House Intelligence Chairman Devin Nunes on O'Reilly a few minutes ago. He's saying he has seen strong evidence that President Trump was spied upon by the Obama administration, but none that the Trump campaign colluded with the Russian government. Meanwhile, Democratic Congressman Mark Pocan of Wisconsin says he has seen, quote, damning evidence of collusion between Russia and the Trump campaign, but he says journalists will likely publish it in the near future. The rest of us are stuck in a third reality with no proof for either claim. Perhaps Congressman Pocan can change that. He is on the set tonight. Congressman, good to see you.
Yeah, thank you, Tucker. Glad to be here.
So the concern here, I think, on the left and on the right, too, and my concern is that all of this stuff undermines people's faith in a system that is built on faith, essentially. So given that, does it really help to say, for either side, Republicans too, I've seen secret documents I can't tell you about, we're going to wait till it's leaked. Why don't we just all be quiet until the evidence emerges?
Well, or I think what 2/3 of the people in America want, let's have an independent commission come in. It's in the best interest of everyone, and get this resolved so we can move on with things. But the problem is you've got the classified document by 17 intelligence agencies that I've read and reread parts of it. You've got the separate dossier by some British person I don't even refer to, although some of those things have been proven to be true. And then you've got some work that journalists are doing, things like what they had around the Attorney General, that he indeed had some contacts during the campaign. And you're right, there's a lot of information out there right now, but that's why it's in everyone's best interest to have an independent commission separate from Congress come in and take a look at all of this, and then we can move on. And that's what the public's really asking for.
But you know what's really going on, which is the NSA, the National Security Agency, has all the data on everything. They've tapped into the trunk lines, every email communication in the United States, every phone call. Maybe some of our thoughts are being recorded and stored by the NSA. So they know exactly the degree to which the Russians interfered or didn't, the degree to which the president was spied upon during the campaign or not. Why doesn't the Intel Committee in the House and the Senate say, produce the documents now? Now.
Yeah, well,
and the president should say that too.
And it would have worked perfectly that way had, especially on the House side, the head of the Intel Committee not kind of stumbled through this process. And the fact that, just last week he, is getting documents on White House grounds, and then he's announcing and giving to the White House the next day. I mean, he's put himself in a point where he's going to have to recuse himself from all this, which is why an independent commission, which is exactly what the American public wants, makes the most sense. Because it's in the best interest for the Trump administration, right? If there's nothing to be had out there, then let's have that independent commission come in.
Let's be honest. I mean, look, I've had Schiff on this show, Congressman Schiff of Burbank, who's on the Intel Committee, and I asked a couple pretty normal questions. I thought, like, where's the evidence, for example? And he called me an agent of the Kremlin. This is clearly a guy who's totally partisan, which shouldn't surprise us. Congress is about partisanship. So why are we pretending we're surprised that Nunes is a Democrat and Schiff, is a Republican and Schiff is a Democrat? I mean, like, this is what it is, but we can still get information, can't we? And why don't we wait until it's actually produced?
But that, I would argue, is exactly why you want an independent commission to come in and take advantage of looking at it without having the partisanship. Because I think the American public, you rarely see, 66% say they want to do something like this because there is so much information. I mean, I can tell you from what I've read, anyone who read the classified report, including people like John McCain and plenty of others, your natural reaction should not be to say, let's lift sanctions. And yet that's exactly what the Trump administration did. So I think what we had got some concerns, that was way before we found out all the connections between campaign people on the Trump campaign, administration officials.
Maybe he thought our Russia policy was silly. I mean, he said that in every speech that I covered a lot of his speeches. He said, look, we can make common cause.
And I can tell you, if you had the opportunity, Tucker, I wish you'd join me, and I've asked for that classified report to be declassified because I think you can take away where our sources came from. I think that's the biggest concern the intelligence community has, and show all that information that I've seen, because let's let the American people make the decision and have an independent commission.
But you know what? I don't think I need to be in the Intel Committee to be convinced. So why don't you explain to me precisely how the Russians altered the outcome of that election, and if they were so deeply involved, what happened in California, for example? They don't get Russian propaganda there. Why did Hillary win by almost 4 million votes if it was that effective an operation, win the popular vote?
Yeah, so I think the parts,
I don't get it,
the parts that have been unclassified have clearly said, the intelligence community said, said that the Russian government, led by Putin, specifically interfered with the election. They wanted Donald Trump to win, and a lot of the details of some of the stuff that's still going to come out and is still coming out. But you've got to admit, you look at this.
Well, I'll just name one. That's it. That's all I want. Look, foreign governments try to interfere with every single process in American life all the time, and you know exactly what I'm talking about. They're everywhere. They live in my neighborhood.
But we've never had anyone interfere with the U.S. election like Russia has right now.
How exactly did Russian activity move a single vote? And do we have evidence that? You don't need to have access to classified documents to know that.
But actually, you do. I think some of the information that...
Can you give me a hint?
No, because I've sworn an oath. That's part of the thing. So here's what I went on the floor of Congress and said, let's declassify that report. Because if we can, again, protect the sources, which I think is the main concern they have, let the American people see everything and make the decision.
I get all that, and I understand.
Well, the allegation is what the intelligence community said. They have come in and done through multiple ways, try to influence the election.
But name one that actually had any effect. That's it. You don't need to have any classified information revealed to say that. You could say,
well, you do. In some cases, you do.
How about any case at all?
Tucker, I wish you could read the classified report. I wish the American people could, because I think if they saw that and the new information that journalists are coming out, like Jeff Sessions, who lied to Congress, saying that he never met with any Russian officials and, maybe 2 or 3 times.
Oh, the meeting that was set up by the Obama administration at the Republican convention?
I'm talking about the 2 or 3 contacts
the one that was set up by the Obama administration.
At the Republican convention when multiple people
by the Obama State Department set up that meeting.
When multiple people had the contact.
It's so dumb.
But how about the idea that when FBI Director Comey said that the Trump administration has been under investigation because of collusion? That means something. Now, I wish we would have known that before the election.
Well, it means
might
a
have been
lot
more
of
helpful.
things, but I don't think, whatever, that's a whole separate conversation.
But that's why the independent commission is the smartest way to proceed.
We need an independent commission because we need to safeguard our elections. I think you've sponsored legislation to that effect, too.
Yes.
There's no evidence in the public view that shows a single vote changed by Russian interference. There's a ton of evidence showed that votes have been changed and affected because we don't have voter ID laws in a lot of states. Well, so if you really care...
I would actually disagree with you that. I got PolitiFacted on that one.
In the city of Detroit,
I said my statement based on the numbers was you're more likely to get struck by lightning than commit voter fraud. No, and I got a true out of PolitiFact. They don't like to give out trues because the reality is...
What does that even mean? In the city of Detroit, in the 2016 election, 1/3 more votes were cast than there were registered voters. So,
that happens on a regular basis because you have new voters and people who move get considered a new voter.
That's
how the numbers work.
No,
that's just how the process is. That's not a damning statistic.
Well, it might be or it might not be. We don't know. And we also don't know why a certain number of dead people vote to this day in states across the country. So, why wouldn't you have a voter ID law? I don't get that.
Well, first of all, I don't know how a voter ID law would change Russia interfering with our elections. But I do think if you had an independent... Then let's have the independent commission come in and see if Russia indeed had fake voters coming in. I don't think they're going to find that. But let's go ahead. If that's your idea
of people voting who shouldn't have voted. I don't think it was millions of them. I don't agree with the president on that. But there were certainly a lot of them.
But you don't think...
care, why not shut that down?
But Tucker, don't you think if 2/3 of the American public and leaders in both parties think an independent commission makes sense?
Back to the commission again.
Pardon?
We're back to the commission again. Okay, you're for the commission.
Let's get the facts.
I mean, I have facts here.
I know you want to change the subject of photo ID, but I would much rather talk about...
It's the same theme, which is how do we protect
our
fragile system.
But how can you allow another government to interfere with your elections?
Because you provided no evidence that they did, and not one person has provided one piece of evidence that affected the outcome.
The evidence will continue to come out.
Here every night, 9 to 10 Eastern, and you're welcome to join.
Join me in asking for that to be declassified.
I'm sure you'll leak it to someone soon anyway. I can't wait to talk about it.
We'll get the information.
Thank you, Congressman. Good to see you.
Thank you.